Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 77, My Wife, Part 2. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
And this is Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, helping you heal your family legacy. Now, for those of you who've been listening, you know that my wife, Deb, was in our last episode, and she was talking about the trauma that she experienced as a child. And most of it was about, in fact, all of it was about her relationship with her mother and how that has, what happened and what it's like for her today. And I don't even know if we barely mentioned your father, but your father was in there too. Well, you said that your father was in the military, and that made it so that you moved around a lot, and it was hard for you to develop friendships, and you thought that was how it was for everybody. So it didn't, you just kind of went along in your life, staying below the radar. And so today I'd like to talk a little bit about your father.
Okay.
So tell us about him.
Well, my dad was he was an alcoholic. And like I said, he was in the Army. And he was a helicopter pilot. And so he was gone a lot. When he was around, he was your happy drunk. He was the nicest man, he cracked jokes, and he was lighthearted, and, with what you call the life of the party, right? Everybody always, when you think of that. And, I loved him very much when he was around, but he wasn't around a lot. And, that was, and then because of his job, we moved around a lot. So then there was the isolation from that. And let's see, so we moved around, like I lived in 8 different states in 12 years. And then, my dad, I don't know, should I get into that? Anyway, I'd just say he wasn't around a lot when I was younger.
I think it's an important piece. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. He ended up getting in legal trouble, and he ended up in prison when I was about, I think, 12, somewhere around. I think that's about when it was. And so then there was that abandonment that he was away. So we had to go. We went and lived with my grandmother. And by that time, my brother was around, and he was just 2. So it was my mom, my brother, and myself. And we would go visit him, like once a month in prison. So my brother got to know him as a man in the big house. And then he got out of prison, and he never came back. That was the final abandonment, is that he went and had another family. And then he was never really around much. Growing up, I got to see him occasionally, as, a teenager, but it was pretty rare. So I had not much of a relationship with my dad after that.
Mm-hmm. And just to show you how, children's memories, it's really hard to, remember. For most people, it's really hard to remember their childhood. And when there's abandonment and neglect, it's really hard to remember. First of all, if there's abandonment and neglect, by the very nature of those issues, there's not much going on. I mean, when you're a child, remembering that you were neglected or abandoned is almost impossible. So you remember things like, well, he was a helicopter pilot, and we moved a lot. And so even when you moved a lot, when I've asked you before about, well, what was it like, say, when you lived in Alaska?
Mm-hmm.
What was it like when you lived in Alaska?
I have no idea. I know we lived on the Army base.
Mm-hmm.
I was there when they had the huge earthquake in Alaska. But
do you remember that? Being in that earthquake?
No, I don't have.
You don't remember that? Yeah.
I
remember that earthquake.
I know you and I have had lots of talks, and you can remember story after story of growing up, and I just don't have stories. I don't have memories, of growing up, specific things. So yeah, there's nothing really there. Even when you ask me, it's like, I don't know. I don't know.
But to, give our listeners an idea of how profound the child's memory, it's not just a memory issue, it's also what happens to children oftentimes when they are feeling so frightened. Because remember, this is all about not feeling safe. Okay? That's what it's about. It doesn't matter what it is. But not feeling safe. The earthquake that we're talking about, I think it was 1965 earthquake.
I think so.
In Alaska.
64, yeah.
Yeah. And I was a young teenager then, and I absolutely remember that earthquake, even though I was in Utah. Like, it made big news because, the pictures were like, it was like a 8-point earthquake. It was huge. The streets were all destroyed. Buildings were on the ground. And there you were, a little girl living through that earthquake without a memory of it. Yeah. And so, which is also part of the reason that, especially with sexual abuse, people just don't have a memory because it feels like such a huge betrayal when you even understand. But it's also very frightening to children because there's really ugly energy coming towards them, right? And so even with that, and because they don't know what it is, it's very hard to know it, to remember it, to access it. So, it's interesting to me when you talk about your father. He was a happy drunk. He was the life of the party and all of that. But at some point when he and your mother were together, and probably when they were drinking, that there was fighting going on.
Yeah. Yep.
But you don't really remember that.
Not really.
Mm-mm. So, the memories that you do have, though, and we've talked about this, that what happened to you as a child living in your family impacted you as an adult.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And it made you frightened.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Even as an adult.
Even as an adult. Yes.
That must have felt, I can only imagine what it must feel like when you're walking around with that. It's like having to, it sounds like you also tried to travel under the radar a little bit as an adult. You're trying to be under the radar.
Yeah, well, I certainly tried to be under the radar and, like we talked about before, avoid conflict almost at any cost, right? And to not cause problems for anybody. Yeah. Mm-hmm. To still be perfect even as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What ways do you think that, besides being, trying to fly under the radar, do you have any specific examples that you'd like to share about how you just did everything to be perfect and not to upset the apple cart. What kind of things in your adult life did you tolerate in order so that you could do that? You want to share that?
I know this might sound kind of weird, but when I got into police work, surprise, surprise, I found that a lot of police officers were adult children of alcoholics. There were a lot of us.
Yes.
And so we're helpers. And so we want to help people. And so then you're out there helping other people, and then you don't have to deal with your stuff, right? Because other people's stuff is more important than yours. So that kind of, I think, correlates to when you were growing up, that my mom and my dad's stuff was more important than my stuff. And that, if I can just, help them out, like, I can't think of a specific example, but that seems to correlate to me as far as that kind of thing. Things that I tolerated, maybe I stayed in some relationships before I met you that were maybe, if I had been in recovery sooner, I would have realized that was an abusive relationship and not stayed.
So like emotionally abusive?
Yeah, emotionally. Yeah, never physically. Definitely just emotionally, where it just wasn't good for me.
Yeah. And so, but you didn't want to cause problems?
I didn't want to cause problems. And then also it was like, well, with the abandonment, it's like, well, I'm willing to stay in this intolerable situation because I saw, so many people in my life. I had, by the way, like 3 stepfathers. And they all left. And so, as a child, you incorporate that into, well, I must be doing something wrong because everybody's leaving me. And that's so as an adult, it's like, well, I'm going to do everything I can and just stick around because I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be that person where I leave, even though it would have been better if I had for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So you tolerated kind of intolerable behavior on the part of the people you were with.
Right. Yeah.
So that you wouldn't be abandoned.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. And now you probably know, because you've heard me say it 1,000 times, is that now you know that as an adult, your partner or your wife in this case can't abandon you. They can leave, but they can't abandon you. The only one that can abandon you is who?
You. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Well, not me, but yourself,
yes.
Right?
Yes, yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can abandon yourself. And how can you abandon yourself?
Well, part of it is not being true to yourself, right? I think, and not recognizing your value and putting other people's, I don't know, worth isn't the right word. I don't know how to describe it.
I think that would be a good word, actually. Worth.
Yeah. Over your own. And, that's how I would characterize it.
So is your father still living?
No, my dad, died of a heart attack, about 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago?
Well, I think he died before my dad.
Okay. Well.
And my dad died in 2009, so 16. I was like, no, not 16, but let's see, 14, 13 or 14. And so, I think it would be fair to say that, even knowing, well, I know that as we age, and you are not as old as me, but as we age, sometimes, time is more relative than it ever was before.
Right.
So he's actually been gone for about 13 years.
Well, isn't that kind of interesting? It's, and maybe part of it not realizing is the whole thing of I don't remember things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
I mean, I certainly remember because I had to go get him because he died in Mexico. So I had to go and retrieve his ashes down there. But it was hard to say. It was kind of a non-event. I mean, because he hadn't been around. I hadn't had many relationships with him even as an adult. So, I mean, maybe that's a horrible thing to say.
No, it's just reality.
Yeah.
Don't judge yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the reality of the situation is, and, people have heard me say this on the podcast, and I know you've heard me say it, is that your adult children will treat you and be in relationship with you the way that you were in a relationship with them as a child. If you were loving and caring and helpful and, you got unconditional love and you felt safe in your family, your adult children will absolutely want to be around you and they will be connected to you. We have a child. We have a son, right?
Right. Yeah.
Is he connected to us?
Oh, yeah. Yes,
how often do we hear from him?
At least 2 or 3 times a week, at least. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And, he has said to me, and I know I'm pretty sure he said it to you, it's like he got real serious with me one day and said, well, Mom, you know that if you get to the point where you can't take care of yourself, I will take care of you. He said that to you too, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, and you can sense the love that he has for you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I certainly can sense the love that he has for me. But when your parent isn't there, how in God's green earth do you have that connection? How can you have it?
Yeah, you can't. Nope.
No. And so it's not a situation where you say, well, it's, bad of me or, it's like, no, it's fact. He didn't nurture and create a relationship with you. And so when he died, it was like, oh, he died. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And he was sober when he died. Right?
Yes. Yes, he was. Yeah.
It's like he was like one of the first members of AA. I'm back and I mean, really, he'd been in AA a long time.
Yes, he had.
For like 30 or 40 years?
40 years, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, we carry him around today.
Yes,
he's in box.
Yes, he's still with us.
When are we going to get rid of that? I say that because I just think this is so paradoxical, really. Not ironic, maybe. He's in a really pretty wooden box, his ashes, and it's got an AA symbol on it.
Yeah.
And AA, means it's not just about getting sober people. It's about changing the way you are and making amends with the people you hurt. And I know that he reached out and, tried to have a relationship with you and me. I knew him. And I think we probably saw him once
or twice, yeah.
Once or twice?
Yeah.
Which, in my view of the world in AA, is like, that's not exactly doing it. So I just think it's ironic that we carry this box around with an AA symbol. So he died sober. So what? Anyway. But, that is, you also mentioned that you had 3 stepfathers that abandoned you.
Right. Yep.
And I just want to add, just to show the power of abandonment. Is that your dad, he gave up parental rights, didn't he?
Right. Yes, he did. Yeah, I was adopted by my first stepdad.
And so then you're adopted by your stepdad, and he leaves. What the heck?
Well, my mom was always attracted to alcoholics, and they were all alcoholics.
Yeah.
So that was the theme.
Mm-hmm. Which, for all of you out there who's married to an alcoholic, get yourself better. If you get up the courage to leave that alcoholic, get yourself better. Get yourself an Al-Anon. Get yourself some therapy so you don't marry another alcoholic, because you will. You might think they're not, but they are. And if it is going to be an alcoholic you marry, get a sober one that's worked on their issues, because you don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And listening to Deb, you can see her mother did the same thing over again, at least 4 times, and one of them was your adoptive father. He adopted you.
Yeah, he did.
Did he have any interaction or, with you after they divorced?
Nope, never saw him again. No.
So, the level of abandonment is, like I told all of you, it's like this abandonment is huge to you. And even if there's only been 1 or 2 people abandon you, abandonment is one of those wounds that's very hard to identify. It's very hard to heal. Because did you think you'd been abandoned, Deb?
I didn't know what it was. Mm-hmm. I know it didn't feel good. So it wasn't until, like when I met you and started working on stuff that I realized that's what it was. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I knew it didn't feel good.
Yeah, and did you know or even understand why you stayed in relationships that were unhealthy?
No. Not until I started working the program and, working on stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you think about it, or did you make up? What did you make up about that before?
That somehow it was my fault. That it didn't work out. That I'd done something wrong. So, yeah.
Even though, based on what you're saying now, it's like you tried to fly under the radar, tried to be perfect, tried to make sure that you didn't cause problems, and you still thought it was your fault.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have any basis in adult reality.
None whatsoever. Nope.
Must have been a relief to find that out, that it wasn't your fault.
It was. It took a while for that to really sink in, though, because I still didn't quite believe it at the very beginning. So it took a while to really have that sink in and become true for me.
Did you feel, now, you might not have felt it then and you might not have remembered, but did you feel like it was your fault about your, what was going on in your family when you were a child?
I don't have, a memory of that. My sense is that I would have as a little kid, is like, I'm doing something wrong and causing this. And, but I don't have any exact memories of that, but it feels right when you say that, when I think about it.
Yeah. As I've said before in the podcast, is that children always think whatever is happening in their family, that it's their fault, whether it's good or whether it's bad. Right?
Right.
It's like, if you ever watch a little child, oh, by the way, we have a little grandson, so we watch him a lot. And you can see that he's not even 2 yet. So, but he is totally self-centered, right?
Yeah. Yes, he is.
As he should be at that age, and he'll stay self-centered, and with love and concern and care by all of the adults in his life, he will eventually learn that he's not the only one in the universe. He's already learning that a little bit, but he really believes that if he just goes over to that door, he'll walk right through it, or that someone will open it for him. It's not about, well, you're not dressed yet, or, we're not dressed yet, or whatever. It's like he walks through the door outside, right? So, just because he does it, he expects that everyone will jump to his attention, and he's learning that that's not true. But, in a positive way, and that's my point, in a positive way, children think they're the center of the universe and that they cause everything. You thought that you caused it all.
Right. Yep. So
and that's, otherwise you wouldn't have kept doing it as an adult.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. And so now, thank you, Deb. I really want to express my deep appreciation for your willingness to do this, because I think it's, it takes a lot of courage for you to be on the show with me. And the other thing is that I want you to know that, yes, I know that now that, you've gotten, you've really addressed those issues and gotten better and better, and you don't fly under the radar, and you're not afraid to say what you think. And I did that to myself. And I'm really glad, because I know that, that our relationship is based on truth and honesty, and we never have to worry about that. That I take care of myself. I know you take care of yourself, and we have really good boundaries. And, it's a wonderful place to be. Thank you.
You are welcome. I'm glad that you invited me, and I hope that it's helpful for other people out there. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. So, thank you so much. And please remember that my email address is healingyourfamilylegacy@gmail.com. I also have a website if any of you are interested, donnabevanlee.com. That might be very useful. I have many blogs on that website, and one of them, which, I've gotten a lot of feedback about that people really like, is the one on abandonment. So you might want to check it out. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Healing Your Family Legacy here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. Healing Your Family Legacy is copyright 2022, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.